What's happening, people? Welcome back to another episode of the Mini Adult Troubles. In today's podcast, I have with me someone with rich knowledge in tech, journalism, and culture. Assistant editor of the Economic Times, Shaifali Bhatt. Welcome to the show, Shaifali. Thank you so much for giving me your time for the podcast.
Thanks, Ayush. I'm really excited to be here. Always good to learn from the Gen Z. That's pretty much what I do for a living.
Yeah.
Learn from them and then write about what's happening in their lives and how that's making technology companies make changes to themselves. So this is just an extension of that. Really happy to be here.
Yep. So I went through your LinkedIn profile, your articles and Economic Times in depth, and there was really some good articles there, and a lot of questions are around that as well. And to start with, it's a
Hmm.
personal question. I want you to share your experience of the importance of being raised by a single mother. What were your hardships, lessons, and how you lived a life different from the normal?
First some context. The
Hmm.
reason I wrote that particular blog post was because some of my
Yeah.
friends told me about this particular thread that was doing the rounds on Twitter about CV and how you
Yeah.
shouldn't write a CV in this day and age, which I think had some interesting and relevant points. But one point there, which was about I don't care if you were raised by a single mother, I think that really triggered me, even though I have never mentioned that in my CV. But it just made me feel that if somebody is putting that in their CV, they must have thought it through, because it is personal. It is
Hmm.
something extremely personal.
Yeah.
When you go and introduce yourself to somebody, you'd probably tell them, hey, I am this and this, I work here, this is where I live, this is what I like to do. Of the first five things that you tell somebody, you don't tell them, oh, by the way, I'm also someone who was raised by a single mother. You don't do that.
Correct.
So it just got me thinking, why did this person do this? And as somebody who was largely raised by a single mother, because my parents are divorced, and it wasn't a happy marriage, but even when my father was around, my mother practically raised both my brother and me. And I just sort of went back to that time to kind of understand why it is something that really overpowers our personality. And
Hmm.
actually, probably overpower is a wrong word, but it shapes our personality in a way that we sometimes consciously don't even realize. And so that was kind of the trigger to write that post for somebody like me, or even that person. I really hope at some point that person also reads it to know that they did good, they didn't do anything wrong by putting that in their CV, because
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of validate whatever it is that they had thought of when they wrote that post, because
Hmm.
we do have a lived experience that cannot be acquired, at least voluntarily. uh, and
Yeah.
so what that entails is, look, even within the basically the universe of people who are raised by single mothers, all families are the same broadly, but households are unique. So
Hmm.
every single mother or a single parent household will be unique. And yet there will be certain things that I feel, basis the conversations that I've had with people who also have been raised by single parents,
Yeah.
I think some things are common amongst us. One of them being, I think we learn early on in our lives how to protect ourselves, because
What do you mean by
somewhere
that?
at the back of our head, um, so in the sense that that if you've gotten into a fight with somebody in school, your father is not going to come
Ah.
to the
Yeah.
principal's office the next day to sort of
Hmm.
take up the cudgels. And you have to do it on your own. And also the whole thing of having two parents, so there is one person who does one thing and the second who does who basically makes time for the other thing. We don't get that. So it's a single parent who's doing everything. So you also know that
Hmm.
a lot of these fights you have to take up on your own. Like, I remember in school, so many of my friends got help from their parents who would help them with their homework after a point,
Yeah.
or things that your tuition teacher would not do for you, like writing your speech for a competition and stuff. We didn't have those things. I mean, I know
Yeah.
it's very like, it's probably a lame example, but
No, not.
those are real
I
examples. Like,
understand. Yeah.
I
Hmm.
had to do all of that by myself, and so did my brother for that matter. And I think that just makes you fiercely independent, and you don't
Hmm.
even realize it, because you don't go to anybody for help. uh, sometimes it also becomes a problem, because then you don't know how to ask someone for help. And I think that is some sort of an unlearning that takes place once you start working and you're with a
That's a
team.
blessing in disguise in
Uh,
itself as well.
Yes. So I know for a fact that I don't depend on people,
Mm.
which works for me because I don't expect anything from anyone. Because I've kind of grown up doing almost everything by myself and not relying on anyone. So you become very self-reliant,
Yeah.
and like I said, that has been my experience. You learn to protect yourself. You become self-reliant. You also have a very different worldview of gender, because you see your mother doing everything, and therefore there's no gender wise demarcation in your head of
Yeah.
this is what a woman's role should be, this is what a man's role should be in this world, because
Mm.
you see your mother sort of acing at everything.
Doing
So
everything. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah,
that
that
extent.
also, it's also interesting when you see it from like experiential point of view, like because you only had a single mother, and
Mm.
against if you see somebody grown up in like a proper father mother household, they may or may not have a discriminatory view towards gender, but because you only had a single mother, you never had, as you mentioned, that there was no discrimination or demarcation, as you mentioned. So that's also an interesting insight ki how we are also, you know we are, our mentality or thinking is all based on experiences that we have, and not everybody who's just born is not discriminated कि यार ये लड़की है यार ये लड़का है. So that's also an interesting point.
Yeah, I guess that's what it is, right? You need to be open to these experiences and embrace the fact that, okay, somebody who comes from that kind of an household may have a different experience than yours, and therefore, what is that experience like? So, and
Mm.
that's what that blog post was essentially all about.
Yeah,
That
yeah, yeah.
you need to understand why somebody would want to put that on their CV. It means
Mm.
that there is something that they're
They
trying
want
to
to
tell
talk
you.
about,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
They
they
want to
want to
talk
talk
about it.
about it. So, like,
Correct.
this is my story. What I told you was my story. They may
Mm.
have an entirely different story. Give them a chance to tell you what that story is and what
Sure.
that means to your company.
Mm. I think it helps you mature as well. And it's also long term. If you see, like, the first 15 years of life may be tough, but after 15, you're self dependent and whatnot. And here I
Yeah.
am still dependent on my mom for everything till like 18. So, moving on to the stories part of things, journalism. What inspired you to like be a journalist?
Yeah, I really, it's amazing how this is what I always wanted to do. And I think I got freakishly lucky that I was able to do what I always wanted to do as well. I remember, I think I was in seventh standard, and there was
Mm-hmm.
some neighborhood uncle I was talking to about something and
Yeah.
how I want to write and stuff. So he said, "So journalism mein chale jana na." And I was like, "Oh, ye kya hota hai? What is this thing?"
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was my introduction to the word journalism, and that's how I understood, okay, so these people, the anchors, the news anchors and all that you see on TV, all this is journalism. Acha, okay. uh, and yeah, I think it really helped right from the beginning to know that this is what you wanted to do. I think I always liked writing, and I always liked reading nonfiction. I think those two things kind of helped, because
Non-fiction. Okay.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it was more about I mean, it was not fiction writing that I enjoyed as much as nonfiction
Same.
writing. So, huh. So, uh, yeah. So I guess that is something that really helped. And then after a little bit of drama at home, uh, journalist se kaun shadi karega, and it's a very weird life that you have, and lifestyle that you have and all that. I think the first time they saw my byline, because I'd started freelancing with Times of India and Hindustan Times back in my hometown in Haryana.
Mm-hmm.
I'm from Kurukshetra in Haryana.
Yeah.
And I remember when my uncle saw my byline for the first time, I could notice that there was a slight smile on his face. And I knew that, okay, now this battle is going to be, easy to fight.
Yeah.
uh, and yeah, so that's how I got into journalism. And from there I knew that I wanted to write about advertising for some time, and was
Got
able
it.
to do that for that time being. Then when I wanted to move into writing about culture and other things, I was able to do that within my organization as well. They were very nice to sort of accommodate that. Then when I wanted to write about tech and culture, again they were nice enough to sort of allow me to do that, and which is what I'm doing right now. So I think a lot of nice people have kind
Yeah,
of helped me in my career path.
got it, got it. So coming to the tech stories part of thing, I read an article around thirst trap. This was the first time I read about. I got to know about this concept called thirst trap. Very interesting concept. Can you first explain what this concept is?
Yes. So even for me, it took some learning. I had to look it up, what thirst trap is, and people also kind of helped describe it to me. It's essentially posting content. It could be in the form of pictures. It could be in the form of, your voice or words, or video, which is suggestive, which is basically uh, which basically gives you an option, sort of an a way to be sexually interested in me if I'm putting
Hmm.
that content out.
Hmm.
That is essentially what thirst trap
Yeah.
is what Cambridge Dictionary tells you, by the way.
Right. Right.
um, so that is
So
their definition of it. Yeah.
yeah, and I read your article, and I think there are two views. There's one part of audience which says that it's part of expressing yourself, and there's the other part
Yeah.
who just say that it's inappropriate and you should not do this. And in my personal opinion, I realized, okay, this is called thirst trap, and I was like, I saw this a lot on Twitter. I think this happens more on Twitter than on Instagram. I'm not sure, but in my experience, I saw this more on Twitter. And then my
Huh.
personal opinion is that definitely it's okay if you want to express yourself, but there's definitely a
Huh.
part of an audience, female audience, who's also misusing this thirst trap. That's my personal opinion. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I'm not sure if you can say misuse, because misusing it for what? For validation, right? For likes. So many people are doing it in so many different ways. So then, why is just this, misuse, and not, everything else? Uh, but my take on this is I
Mm-hmm.
was fascinated. I think it
Yeah.
started off. I'll tell you how the story also came about. It started off when people were putting TikToks on 365 days, and I think around the time there was a podcast on Spotify, which is not there. It magically disappeared, and I don't think I have a screenshot of it to talk about it. But
Mm-hmm.
basically, there were certain things that I was seeing on Twitter and on TikTok and otherwise, and it just made me feel that people have normalized talking about pornography on
Mm.
the internet.
Yeah.
And it's a first for India, because earlier it would just be like references to Playboy and stuff and Savita Bhabhi and these kind of things, but
True.
this was just another level. That's how it started, and I started talking to people, and that's when it came about that there is this thing. I think in conversations with the uh, s- maybe 6 to 7 first conversations that I had, I think two things that came up were that it was young women in the 18 to 23 age group who were putting thirst traps, and they were kind of
Mm.
bringing about this change. And that's when I thought, okay, this is a more interesting story to look at. So
Mm.
that's how the thirst trap story came about. uh, I completely, I'm completely on board with the pros of thirst trap. I think it allows you to, to own your sexuality,
Yeah.
which, a lot of women, if you're not a celebrity or an internet celebrity, you're not able to do that. You don't have the confidence to do that. And I think
Mm.
because of the way that this community works
Definitely it's
online,
coming.
where
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, some of the interesting bits that I found was you don't put your actual name there. It's some emoji or some random title which would be your username. Most of these accounts are private accounts, even though they have thousands of followers on
Correct.
Twitter and Instagram. And all these women follow each other, and
Mm.
so many of the thirst trap threads are
That's true.
reply to basically like quote tweet
Ha
this
ha.
one with your picture thread. So it's
Correct.
it's a community thing, and I think
And they
that is
encourage
just
themselves.
fascinating. Yeah, I mean, it's like women propping other women, and
Mm.
it just like it just warms my heart every time that happens.
That's true.
So
That's true.
I'm completely on board with the pros. I think most of these women are aware of the cons as well, which is again, it's a validation hack, and some of them are aware that they shouldn't basically their life shouldn't depend on these likes. I think that awareness really helps, but that's for all of
Mm.
us, right? Like I share a story, and now I don't see, okay, who is immediately retweeting it or who is liking it. because now I feel that if you're immediately liking my story or retweeting it, have you even read it? So it's like matlab,
It's
so
a
so now
seven
I
minute
am also
read.
trying to
It's a
kind of
7 minute read, and you have retweeted it in 2 minutes. What does that mean?
so then I'm like, okay, I like the fact that you are like my supporter, but I'd really like you to read the story first. But I mean, we digress. But my thing is, I think the women that I spoke with were aware of what they were doing, and its cons as well. And look, so much of what we do on social media has its cons. The only thing here is that you need to be careful to not
Hmm.
get, to not basically get into trouble. And I think again, some of them, because they keep their accounts private, they don't divulge any personal details about where they're from. I think they're smart women, and I'm kind of glad that they're doing that, so that they don't fall into trouble because of catching negative attention
Yeah,
from men, or anybody for that matter
makes
on the
sense.
internet, because the internet is a dangerous place, to that extent.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think there are the cons are for everyone to see. The one thing I think that I find interesting about some of these cons is that how, while it is feminist, at the same time it is anti-feminist, because it appeals to a male fantasy of a woman, because it objectifies a woman.
Hmm.
But then if you flip it and think about, hey, there are women interested in women as well. So what if they like it as well? So why do we only have to think
Yeah,
about
yeah.
one gender and
Valid
appealing
point.
to that gender?
Hmm.
Yeah. But
Makes
yeah, but
sense.
that's my take. So I'd say that if you're doing it, props to you. Just be careful, because the
Hmm.
internet
I think the
is
intention
is
matters
a
here.
dangerous place.
If you have good
Yeah.
intentions, then go for it. Why not? Yeah. All right. Shifting to media, Indian news, and all of that. So I was huge on media and news in the from I think January 2019 to July 2020. I read every newspaper daily. I was a proper nerd in terms of knowledge. जुलाई में मेरा दिमाग खराब हो गया लाइक इन टर्म्स ऑफ फेक न्यूज इन टर्म्स ऑफ प्रोटेस्ट देख देख के ये प्रोटेस्ट वो प्रोटेस्ट एंड ऑल द नॉनसेंस दैट गोइंग ऑन इन द वर्ल्ड एंड
Hmm.
टू एड टू दैट द फेक न्यूज मतलब तुम्हें पता ही नहीं कि सच क्या चल रहा है झूठ क्या चल रहा है फेक क्या है सच क्या है तो आई स्टॉप्ड रीडिंग न्यूज yesterday was the first day I installed InShots after reading your articles and being inspired कि चलो ठीक है let's go back there are good people writing good articles then I installed InShots yesterday again so what is the solution to this
So, somebody had coined this term infodemic, when all the COVID-related
infodemic
fake news was doing the rounds, and how now we are in the middle of a pandemic, we are also facing an infodemic, and cannot agree more.
mm-hmm.
Uh, the solution to this is, just doing your job right, man. For anyone who does news, or the likes of alt news, and fact checker, and there are a bunch of these sort of organizations and publications that debunk these fake news,
Yeah.
you know and I think we just need more of that, because it is really an infodemic that we are in the middle of, and it is
Mm.
it is scary, because our echo chambers are bigger than ever. I was just followed by somebody yesterday, and because I saw a common follower who is somebody of a different political ideology, who I follow just to sort of have a different point of view on my timeline,
Mm-hmm.
to know what is happening on the other side of the world as well. And I just soft blocked this person, because sometimes when you're scrolling through things and you see something, and we're all kind of guilty of it, right? And therefore it's I think fighting fake news is something that all of us will have to do at this point. At a personal level,
Mm.
there are times when I see something, and I feel like, okay, this doesn't make sense. And if I don't have the time, I actually send it to the family group, because I know my father-in-law is going to do due diligence, and he's going to debunk all the myths that are there in that particular, news item,
Yeah, yeah. Mm.
or WhatsApp forward. The awareness is important. The combat is important, and it I think while the onus is on, obviously publications, but individuals who are doing it on their own, at their own level,
Mm.
uh, again, more power to them, because there are so many people who actually don't even read news. Like you just said that, people have just stopped reading news and they're just reading WhatsApp forwards. So you
Yeah,
also
yeah.
need
That's a
individuals
big problem. Yeah.
to, yeah, so you need individuals to rise up, within their
Yeah.
family groups, and deal with this head on.
Mm. I think it's also
Yeah,
responsibility on part of the reader. Like, I think because we are Gen Z and we are the blessed internet generation and all that, we are aware that हम एक बार में
more
believe नहीं
aware.
करते हैं, या हम cross check कर लेते हैं, हम doubt में रहते हैं, यार ये सच नहीं है. We apply common sense, but with the generation
Mm.
above us who are not so internet savvy, they just read or watch something on the news and they're like, बस यही fact है, and they don't do anything else. And I think that is where the problem is. वो Twitter में मीडिया जो भी इनके मतलब वायरल कर देती है कुछ भी फालतू चीजें, दे विल जस्ट सी दैट, दे विल सी, बोल देंगे कि यही फैक्ट है, एंड देन एक दो दिन में जो होना होता है हो जाता है, बाद में तीसरे दिन में पता लगता है कि इट वाज ऑल फेक, बट आई थिंक द डैमेज तब तक के हो गया होता है. सो
Yeah,
अवेयरनेस
and
वाला
that's
भी.
the thing, right? I was talking to Prateek from Alt News about one of these fake news episodes, and
हम्म.
the issue with this is that sometimes the damage is not immediate. Sometimes it's really long term, and
Yeah.
therefore, like, for somebody who's just being fed fake news after fake news, there is,
Hmm.
there is a certain ideology that they're forming and they're strengthening over time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
then the outcome of that is, can be potentially harmful. And I think that is something that we all need to check. News organizations need to check that. I'm so glad for organizations like Alt News who are doing, I mean, I sometimes I wonder how do they even do this, because their job literally involves going through a lot of garbage every day, trying to prove
Hmm. Yeah, seriously,
why this is
a lot of manual
garbage and
work.
not to be
Yeah.
believed. Yeah, it's crazy, it's really hard, and more power to those guys. We need more of those guys, and we also need more awareness amongst, like you said, the the generations that are not your Gen Z and your millennial, because these are the people who, if you're not continuously talking to them about the existence of fake news, they probably don't even know about it. So
Yeah.
for them, that concept hasn't even
Yeah. True.
entered their circle.
Mind.
it's
Yeah,
it's still
mindset.
news, everything is still
True.
news.
True. Makes sense. Makes sense. All right. I read another article of yours. I've read a lot of articles, but there was this.
Thank you, I'm glad you read them.
Yeah. So there was
The
this.
thing, I've shared a lot of articles of yours.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. You have. You have. I was just opening tabs after tabs after tabs after tabs. I was like, "Kab khatam hoga?" Yeah, but it was worth the time. Anyway, the question was. All right. So the question is that I read this article where you talked about CPM in India, YouTube monetization, and all that. So to give US perspective, so basically in India, cost per like impressions that you get, 1,000 views per paisa milta hai, that is very very less. Like it's if it's 10 rupees for 1,000 views in India, it's like 1,000 rupees for 1,000 views in the US or the Western countries, and that sort of demotivates a lot of creators, or does not sort of, they can't make a living out of this if they are solely dependent upon YouTube AdSense for their money. And your article was around Carrie Minati, how he earns like $66,000 a month, which sounds very, very fancy. But when you compare it from global terms, it's not fancy at all. So,
Yeah.
what should like a creator in India do to like, if he just wants to be creative, he does not want to depend on brands as say, what should you do?
So I think there are several parts to it. One is that while Ajay Nagar,
Yeah,
aka Carrie
Carrie
Minati,
Minati.
while he became kind of the the hook of the article. I think the broader point that I was trying to make was that he's still making enough money because he's the top YouTuber, so he gets way more money from brand endorsements and collaborations than from
Definitely.
YouTube ad revenue, which unfortunately is not the case with, say, the bottom five. If there's top 10 bloggers, then what about the bottom five who are not getting the kind of marquee
Hmm.
collabs that the top five bloggers in a particular sector are getting?
Yeah,
So what do they do? Because when they are depending largely on YouTube ad revenue, for their income,
100%.
uh, they basically have to wait for Indian digital ad spends to go up, because it's not a function of I mean, it's all a function of your marketer's spend, right? So the marketer spends only that much on digital at this point, and the inventory is a lot cheaper in India, as
Mm,
they say,
yeah.
as compared to so many other countries. And it doesn't have to do with, like, there are so many. I mean, when I saw that that research on which my article really was based, the CPM in Pakistan, in so many of these other countries, neighborhood countries, is much higher than ours. And
Even
it
Pakistan?
also obviously, yeah. And it's I mean, again, it's there for everyone to see. So I'm not telling you if it's 7 times or how much, because I'm not sure how much it was, but it was higher than ours. And
Mm,
I guess it's also about the supply and demand equation there. But the marketers spend. What a creator can therefore do, if you don't have a control over what marketers are going to spend, and therefore how that is going to define the CPM, you probably need to I don't know, maybe try and get more global audience to see your content, which
mm,
is, the one way you can do it is by,
English content.
talking in a, yeah, creating English content, or collaborating with the foreign influencers, so that, you get their audience as well. That could be one, because otherwise they have so many, creators in their, local region that they'd want to watch. So why would they want to watch your content? So this could be one. Or you just become so big in your local language that you don't have to depend on YouTube ad revenue.
Mm.
So it's, and I think for a
It's
lot
a
of
tough road.
people, because yeah, and my sense is, from what I've gathered speaking to creators, is that they are going for the last option, which is that becomes so big in your local language, vernacular language, that you
Mm,
don't have to depend on YouTube ad revenue, because it's not sustainable. I
mm,
think the larger point here is to not depend on any platform for that matter. Instagram's algorithm is something that people are complaining about. TikTok creators obviously are,
mm. Out of
uh,
business.
suffering in India at this point. Again, not the top 10, top 20, but the rest of them. Uh, uh, so, uh, so for a lot of these people now, they're just trying to be platform agnostic and not depend on any one platform for their income.
Mm,
And I guess that is what the way
yeah,
forward
yeah.
is going to be.
Yeah, I think Ranveer Alabadi or Beer Biceps is doing pretty well in this direction, even though his subscribers are not 18, 20 million. He's at 3 million, I think, but he has an English channel, he has a Hindi channel, he has diversified his audience to Twitter, to LinkedIn, to Instagram. So
Yeah,
I think he's the ideal creator to look at in terms of growing and earning as well.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I've heard you're not the first one. There are a lot of other people also who have said the same thing. I have spoken to him in the past as well.
Mm,
And I guess that is a good model to look at,
mm,
if you're trying to sort of make big here. So would definitely recommend.
yeah, yeah. Talking about the monopolistic power that these platforms have, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, they control so much. Like recently the farmer protesters, they had a Facebook page which was deleted by Facebook. And you don't know about under whose pressure people quote a lot of things, but it was deleted, and that's a fact. You can connect the dots then. And then there was the social dilemma thing, that they can literally showcase us some type of content and brainwash us. Again, it goes on our first question, like, we are the experiences that we live right now in the internet age. We are the content that we see, and it they can just brainwash on another level. What is the solution to this? Because we can't live without social media.
Uh, I don't know, man. I
It's a
remember
tough question.
after watching social after no, I remember after watching Social Dilemma, a friend of mine had tweeted how she feels, like, she's the odd one out, because it's very difficult again. And that's why I think lived experiences are so important, because I think people like you and I are, kind of the discerning audience. We don't fall into most trappings, or we are more aware even if we have fallen into those trappings.
Hmm.
Like, I keep getting these mails from FB saying, this one has added a photo, and I have never been curious. It's like, ha, theek hai. If he's added a photo, good for him. I don't want to see. I
Swipe,
don't
hatja.
get notifications. It's like, delete. Do not care.
uh,
And that's the problem, right? Because our generation, and especially your generation and the younger guys, they're just not on Facebook, so we don't even know what the hell is happening there, and how
hmm.
it is kind of hampering the kind of social fabric, because there are so many people who are still there, and it's who are getting influenced by that platform, whereas all of us have kind of moved on
Hmm.
to different other platforms. And I think that's a problem, which is that basically, besides journalists whose beat is Facebook, and therefore they have to be there and they have to tell you, what the
Hmm.
hell is happening over there.
Yeah.
We are not even there. And I, I think the solution to this is just talking about it, right?
Hmm.
Talking about it to yourself as to how this is affecting you. Like, I've been talking to some of my friends of late, where we've just been watching BTS reels. We're all like kind of K-pop stans, and I haven't had the time to watch Queen's Gambit. I haven't had the time to watch Crown's, the latest
Yeah.
season,
It's in my bucket list as
and
well. Hmm.
yeah, and even some of the long form Korean stuff that I want to watch, it's just like, I mean, now today's the first day of my week long first and last break, of this year. So maybe I'll find some time to do that. But we've all gotten into such a strange phase in our lives, where we just
Yeah.
have like smaller breaks, and during those breaks, at least my friends and I, we find ourselves watching more and more of this short content that we can just like scroll, and just
Hmm.
like, not any meaningful engagement with it. So
Yeah.
I don't know who the person is who's uploading that. It's something funny, you share, you move on. And I don't remember a single new account that I have followed on Instagram in the last few weeks, even though I've been watching so many reels. And
Hmm.
I think awareness of it is the first step to realizing, okay, if you're somebody who likes to consume meaningful content, what the hell are you doing now?
Hmm.
Because it doesn't seem like you're doing that. So I
Yeah.
guess for people like us, that awareness of okay, you're letting this affect you, because that is then you're pandering to their objective, which is increasing the time you spend on the platform, as opposed to your objective, which would have been finding a community of like-minded people, or creating a community of like-minded people, creating content or finding content that you can have sort of meaningful engagement with, which is not being met right now.
Hmm.
Right now it's just mindless scrolling that's happening, which is to their benefit, because you're increasing the time that you spend on that platform, which is what
Yeah.
everybody
Yeah.
wants, because that goes with their advertiser interest.
Business. Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. This
And
this
yeah.
brings me back to that paid media question as well. Because if you look at Indian newspapers or Indian media houses, they have to rely upon companies for advertisements and all of that. And in some way or the other, because तुमको पैसा मिल रहा है, तो तुम्हें कहीं ना कहीं कुछ तो करना ही पड़ेगा, to please them. That's one part of things. And when you look at companies like Facebook, YouTube, these are also in a way media houses. है तो advertising marketing companies ही, but if you
Yeah,
look at
although
that,
they'll deny,
हाँ
they'll
हाँ
vehemently deny it.
हाँ, exactly. 90% of Facebook revenue comes from ads. They can't deny that they're a marketing company, but चलो वो बोलते रहते हैं.
No, no, they call themselves tech companies.
Yeah. Tech companies, social media marketplace और पता नहीं क्या क्या. So from that side also मतलब connected रहता है. इंडिया मीडिया हाउसेस में they have to depend upon brands जो बोलेंगे वो करेंगे. Facebook के पास भी ऐसे ही है, लाइक अभी वो आई थिंक ब्लैक प्रोटेस्ट जो हो गया था, ब्लैक लाइफ मैटर्स वाला प्रोटेस्ट हो गया था, तो उसमें लॉट ऑफ टॉप कंपनीज इन द यूएस लाइक कोक, नेस्ले, दे सॉर्ट ऑफ रोल्ड आउट देयर इन्वेस्टमेंट इन फेसबुक एड्स,
Yeah,
मिलियन ऑफ
yeah,
डॉलर्स एक दिन में, तो दे हैड टू टेक एक्शन. तो इट्स आई थिंक
yeah.
इट्स अपॉन पीपल, एज यू सेड, थोड़ा सा इनिशिएटिव लेना पड़ेगा, बात करनी पड़ेगी. देन अभी जैसे एप्पल ने दे हैव लॉन्च्ड अ न्यू अपडेट दैट इन न्यू एप्पल फोन्स देयर विल बी नो प्राइवेसी, तो वो जो प्राइवेसी वाला इशू था. सो बेसिकली एप्पल यूजर्स जो फोन यूज कर रहे हैं, फेसबुक कांट ट्रैक देम, दे कांट बी रीटारगेटेड बाय फेसबुक एड्स, इंस्टाग्राम एड्स. एंड I was running an ad 2 days ago on Facebook, and they're giving a pop-up notification कि Apple is sort of harming your क्या internet transparency. ऐसा ऐसा पॉपअप लिख के आया था एड्स पे कि एप्पल रोक रहा है, स्मॉल बिजनेसेस को क्रश कर रहा है, ऐसा एक पॉपअप आया था कि आप एप्पल,
Wow.
दिस विल इफेक्ट योर बिजनेस. So this is the level like they go to.
Yeah,
Anyway,
I'm not surprised.
yeah. Moving on to the journalism side of things from a career point of view, because you have a helicopter view of a lot of experience of, I think, 8-9 years of experience in this field, maybe more. How can
Over
someone
10, yeah.
over 10 years, wow. So how can someone, who has done undergraduation in a unrelated field, enter journalism? What's the pathway?
Yeah, so I also graduated in commerce. Even though I wanted to do journalism, my mother wanted me to be an MBA. So I also sat for CAT, took that exam,
Hmm.
took it twice, and it was horrible. I think I must have got like some 62 percentile in the first year, and the second year I got 61 percentile. So it was, and this is the first time that I've actually said it out loud to somebody where I know that a lot of other people are also going to be probably seeing it.
Hmm.
But now it doesn't matter, right? Like it's
Yeah,
also
sure.
irrelevant because I'm doing exactly what I wanted to do in life. And at that time, I was kind of like, I was so embarrassed because I was like one of those like, toppers of college and everything like that. So people
Hmm.
were like, oh my God, like, ye to kuch todegi aage jaake, and this and that.
Yeah.
And it just like your dreams also change, right? So I was able to convince my family to let me pursue journalism, and I think that worked out really well for me.
Ji.
um, but I don't think there is see, any kind of post graduation that you do, it sort of teaches you how to work hard, because college life is pretty chill life. uh, at
True.
least that was my experience. So
Same.
I studied commerce, and I
Yeah.
remember spending more time in the parking lot with my friend circle than in the class. I think the only one class that I would attend, and that used to be the first class, was the accountancy class, because that professor was not lenient with your attendance.
Ah.
And
We
so
all
that
have
was the
that one
only class
professor.
that, yeah, there is always that one professor in in the whole world. Like you'll find so many of those. And that was it. Yeah, college life is pretty chill, and I think anything that you do after that is to condition you to work hard, to spend hours dedicated to doing something, and just
Ji.
therefore how you sort of get better at it.
Hmm.
um, you learn on the job more than you learn in a classroom. I think even though I have done 10 months of a journalism course, I would still say that you shouldn't feel that you're any lesser than somebody who studied journalism and then
Hmm.
sort of approached it professionally. uh, I can tell you that from the very first day on my job, I had forgotten everything that I had learned in those 10 months, because ultimately there are a lot of things that you learn on the job by making mistakes. But
100%.
uh, y- y- you know the main things that you need to remember is that you need to be objective, and that doesn't mean that you need to necessarily be neutral, especially in times like these. I think a lot of people mistake objectivity with neutrality. I think those are very different things, especially,
Uh-huh.
like I said, in the current scenario. Being objective is important. You have to bring speak truth to power. Those are
Ji.
the things that you're taught. You're also taught certain basics, certain skills which obviously have their own merit. So if you're going online, if you're pursuing online journalism, that it'll teach you certain skills and software, and there is value to that. I studied broadcast journalism, and there were certain skills that I was taught there, and there's value to that as well. I
Mm-hmm.
wouldn't say that it doesn't have value attached to it. Of course it does. But if you don't have that experience for some reason, it doesn't put you on a back foot. You should still be confident, as as the next guy who's done journalism from an institute,
Yeah.
that you can do good stories, and you can basically bring value to the readers.
Ji. 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 Makes
And
sense.
now it's these days, every senior journalist or every other senior journalist is available on Twitter and LinkedIn. So you just reach out to them, say
Yeah.
that this is the beat that you're interested in. Have basically have an understanding of story writing and what it is that is going to add value to the reader.
Mm.
What is it that's going to be kind of a fascinating discovery, or something that needs to be written about. I think that there are some of these things that you need to remember, and then after that, I think we're all on the same footing.
Mm.
Yeah. Mm.
All right. So, what are the three books, documentaries, and life lessons that you would want to share with the audience?
I think books is easy. there is always a book that kind of changes your life.
Yes.
Luckily I've had mine. It's a book called Left to Tell. It's it's an autobiography of, I mean, it's a first person account of a Rwandan genocide survivor, and how she and a few other women around her age, when I think she was
Mm.
in her teens or something, they were sort of locked up in a bathroom of a neighbor's house, and how she kind of survived that particular experience, and how she found strength to sort of like take on the world after that, and sort of go about
Yeah.
having a better life for herself. um, at the
Something like
time
the
when I
man's
read the
search
book,
for
I think,
meaning.
yeah, and I think that was a book that really gave me purpose, and it gave me
Mm.
a lot of strength. I think the second book is something is one that I read very recently. Not sure why it took me so long, which is Amrita Pritam's Rasidi Ticket. I think the third would be, again, not sure how many people would be interested in it, because it is kind of centered around journalism. But this book called The Good Girls Revolt, which is
Mhm.
based on the women of Newsweek magazine in the US, back in the 60s, who
Okay.
kind of late 60s, who sued their bosses because they would not get a byline for the work that they would put into a story.
G.
Women would not get bylines
Got it. Yeah. Yeah.
in that magazine. Book that I really enjoyed was Snigdha Poonam's Dreamers. Among the many books, if I have to recommend something, I think that is one that
All
I
right.
would recommend. Again, it's about Indian youth, and so many different facets. And I know that some parts of it you'd feel that so many of those things may have progressed by now, but it's still a very relevant read, and I think
Mm.
it's very rooted. It gives you a sense of, again, what's happening outside of your inner circles and your echo chambers, and where the youth of India, what its aspirations are and where
Yeah.
it's headed. It's a terrific read. Would
Got it. Got
recommend
it.
these books.
All right. Three documentaries or films or shows,
Oh,
whatever.
I think you have to watch Unbelievable. uh, that's one show that I would recommend. I also have
Unbelievable.
a very eclectic taste, because I watch a lot of Korean dramas.
Mm-hmm.
And there is one drama that I cannot recommend enough to everybody, but especially women, which is
Uh-huh.
Dear My Friends. It's on Netflix.
Dear my friends.
It's about a woman in her late 30s, who's unmarried, and the third one that I would recommend is this Pakistani series called Zindagi Gulzar Hai. Uh,
Got it.
yeah.
Finally, three life lessons that I would want to share with the Gen Z audience.
I don't have life lessons. Gen Z has to give me lessons. Okay. It works the other way. I learn from Gen Z. That's how this works.
I mean, you have a special. What you have learned
what
from the Gen Z, you can share that.
I can tell you what I have learned from Gen Z. So a 15-year-old, I mean, I don't think that does that qualify? What is the Gen Z this thing
I
cohort
think
ka? 11 to
1997.
24, right?
1997 के जो बाद born हुए they come under Gen
Huh.
Z.
11 to 24, huh? So that's cool. Uh, So I remember a 15-year-old boy telling me, for a story I was doing recently where I was talking to teenagers, that is telling me how you should wear menstrual cups as opposed to sanitary pads, and how
अच्छा.
he talks to, to the women in his group as well about it, and to his sister, and everybody in the family. And he was telling me also, you should also wear menstrual cups, use menstrual cups instead. And I was like, yeah, boss, I have also been contemplating. Yes, I
Thank you,
think
sir.
now that you're telling me, I definitely have to take this very seriously. So I think what I learned from them, is heaps. I learn a lot from Gen Z. Through this podcast, I think I'm also trying to sort of uh, seek out more such people who will come and talk to me, who can tell me what their lives are all about, and what they make of it. Because there is tremendous learning from the Gen Z, and I cannot emphasize that enough. What I learned from them is being comfortable in your own skin, and
Hmm.
also sometimes not being comfortable with it, but being comfortable talking about it. Um,
True, true.
and
I agree.
of course, yeah, of course there could be different, I've had different experiences talking to them, but it just blows my mind how many insights they're kind of loaded with, consciously or unconsciously.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
just the I don't see them making any argument without something solid and substantial to sort of support it with. That's at least been my experience. And in so many of those cases, the clarity of thought about something, like even if you're not sure of it, why you're not sure of it, what you need to know more, that kind of comes very clearly in their conversations.
Hmm.
And so that is something that I've learned from them. um, what else have I learned from Gen Z? I mean, I can tell you that every time I speak to somebody from Gen Z, I marvel at at their knowledge base and their interests, and the kind of stuff that they explore, the kind of rabbit holes that they deep dive into. And
Hmm.
therefore the conversations are just so much more richer, because uh, right from ISTG to to all sorts of like terms and acronyms that I've learned from them. I think I have so much to thank for
Yeah.
to the Gen Z for teaching me so much in life, and I hope they continue to talk to me. Even though like I maintain that while I am a millennial, I am a boomer at heart technically. And yesterday I was having a conversation with two of my friends on Instagram, and one of them, after I said something, she's like, okay, I have left the chat. And because she
I
wrote
saw
her
that.
entire
I saw that on Twitter.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And I actually took a screenshot of it and sent it to the
Ah,
same girl group on WhatsApp, saying, look what she's done, like
ah.
this is just so impulsive. And then I thought, okay, fine, I'll just quietly add her back. And then I go into the settings to try and add her, and I see that she's still in the group. I have never felt more boomer in my life. So one of my friends actually says that it's amazing how you write about all these Gen Z trends and millennial trends, and you just it's true. I learn a lot from people around me, to be on top of things that I'm actually not. And
Hmm.
I think because I make these mistakes, I'm
We all
just
should.
it
Hmm.
just helps me be, yeah, it just helps me be a lot more aware of things. And it just also, I think, that also makes me more curious, because I don't know so much. And so every
Hmm.
time they say something, like I remember once I was playing a Pratik Kuhar song. This was when I was also going through a Pratik Kuhar phase. And I played I played
Old
his a
mess.
live version of his song. Yeah, yeah. I played his lives, like a live version of one of his songs. And then my friend from the Gen Z, she's like, chef, right, that there are music streaming apps where you can play songs. This was obviously 2 years ago. But still I realized that my friends actually, like, they assume that I am like high boomer energy. So they're
Got
very
it.
kind enough. And I mean, at that point, yes, obviously I knew that there are music streaming apps, and I was on 3 of them, by the way. But I think it helps that they kind of assume that isko nahi pata hoga. Because then I find out something more, something interesting, and I'd like to keep it that way.
Yeah.
So it helps that I
Um,
don't know a lot, because that gives my Gen Z friends room to teach me a lot more, and I'm
yeah.
always happy to learn. So
Yeah.
I hope they keep doing that, and they don't lose their patience with me.
Got it. All right, Shefali. Thank you so much for coming to the podcast. It was lovely chatting to you. For all the listeners, go and follow Shefali on LinkedIn. I've linked down her handles, LinkedIn and Twitter. Jaake follow karo. Thank you so much, and keep writing those articles. Helps me a lot personally.
Thank you so much, Ayush. I had a lot of fun talking. I really hope I haven't said too much nonsense, and that some of it was useful. Will be useful to your listeners and your
Definitely.
viewers. It was a lot of fun talking about a whole lot of things that I care about.